off this newscast with a letter to the editor from one of our fans. Great show. I watch it every day. I just had a few questions about your upcoming newscast. How many people in Thailand are infected with HIV? What is the government doing to try to bring down that percentage, and how successful has their efforts been? It would be great if you could answer some of these questions for me. Now to address some of your questions. There are about 500,000 people infected with HIV. To help fight against these problems, they have put into effect the 100% condom use plan and the Global Service Corps. We will go into these details later on in the show. Those methods have been quite successful in dropping the percentage of HIV in Thailand, however. Like I said before, we will go into the details about these methods and how it's happening and everything going on with HIV/AIDS in Thailand later on the show. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to Thailand News Now. Tonight our top story is on the HIV and AIDS crisis that is thriving in Southeast Asia in the nation of Thailand. The epidemic started in the late 1980s. In 1985, 41 new cases of HIV were reported, making the total that year only 41. But by the year 1990, the number of new infections was over 150,000, and by the end of the year, over 316,000 citizens were infected. Although in recent years the number of new infections has decreased dramatically, the number of people infected with HIV in 2010 was over 1.1 million, and more than half of them had died. Projections made by the Asian epidemic model predict that by 2020, the number of people infected with HIV will reach over 1.2 million. At the start of the epidemic, it was evident that it was more common for men to be infected than women. In fact, by 2000, over 414,000 men were living with HIV, while approximately 227,000 women were living with HIV. In recent years, the numbers have come closer to each other, but men are still more often infected. In 2010, over 298,000 men were living with HIV, and only 201,000 women were living with the disease. In order to determine what specific group of people has the highest rate of infecting others and what population is at the highest risk of contracting HIV, the AEM has put together data targeting high-risk populations. These include female sex workers, injecting drug users, male sex workers, men who have sex with men, and clients of sex workers. At the start of the epidemic in 1988, the most common ways for new infections to occur was through drug injection and from a sex worker to a client. Over 90% of new infections were contracted that way. By 1990, nearly 3/4 of all new infections were contracted by clients from sex workers, and by 1995, there was a huge drop in infections from sex workers, and the number one mode of transmission was from a husband to their wife. Today, the most common form of transmission is through MSM. The dramatic changes in numbers from 1988 to 1995 were due to a strong preventative action that took place. At first, we see a huge proportion of new infections coming out of the sex industry, but because of a national 100% condom use program that started in the early 90s, the transmission of HIV between sex workers and their clients slowed greatly. In recent times, because of the lack of prevention programs that exist to address MSM transmission, it has become the leading cause of new infections. Projections suggest that if preventative measures aren't taken, that MSM will continue to be the leading cause of new HIV infection. The death toll surrounding this epidemic is devastating. In the year 1990, there were just above 1,000 deaths from HIV. In 2000, this number rose to over 54,000 deaths in the year. In 2010, the total number of deaths was over 28,000. AEM projections tell us that it will take until 2019 before the death toll is under 20,000. It is evident that the most effective way of reducing the amount of new infections in turn the number of deaths is by using preventative measures. When we come back, you'll hear about preventative measures currently being taken to address this epidemic, and later an interview with a former drug user who has contracted HIV.
Hello. Hi.
How are you?
Not too bad. Are you well?
Yes.
Good.
So, would you like to introduce yourself to our viewers?
Okay, my name is Jim Ming.
And Jim, why are you with us today?
I am here today because I have HIV.
I see. And how did you contract such a disease?
I shared needles with a man while doing drugs.
Did you even know this man?
No, I did not.
Did you know that he could have had HIV?
I didn't even think about it.
Were you aware that you could contract HIV through drug use?
To be honest, I had absolutely no idea this could happen.
Well, that is just harsh.
You don't know the half of it.
Had you have known that the man had HIV, would you have shared needles with him?
Absolutely not.
Do you wish you had known?
Yes, very much so.
If you could change anything and make it different, what would it be?
I would certainly not have participated in a group drug use with strangers.
Do you wish you had not done drugs at all?
Drug addiction has been a harsh part of my life. My addiction constantly puts me in debt or as well as at risk. Now it's caught up to me.
Do you think you will take part in recreational drug use as often?
I hope to be able to control my addiction and seek the proper help.
Very good. Well, that's all the time we have for tonight. Thanks for joining us.
No problem.
Back to you, Eden and Amelia.
Welcome back. Before we left, we informed you of the AIDS epidemic in Thailand. Although the crisis is a huge problem, preventative action is being taken. Once the epidemic of HIV and AIDS began, the government took action. They came up with multiple plans and programs to reverse what had happened. One of the plans was the 100% condom use plan, which was made a policy by Thai government. The policy's purpose was for sex workers to wear condoms in the establishment. If this policy was not followed, then the establishment would be temporarily or permanently shut down. With high spending, quick mobilization by the Ministry of Health, non-government organizations, dedicated individuals, and a strong political commitment helped to reverse the spread of HIV and AIDS. Once this plan was put in action, the new cases of HIV went from 143,000 in 1991 to 19,000 in 2006. Another program was the Global Service Corps, or GSC. The GSC had the programs for appropriate technology and health in the Bangkok office working together to design the English for Life Weekend Camp program in 2007. The camp would go for 6 weekends in June and July to educate teachers and students about HIV and AIDS in English. The objectives for the teacher camps were to introduce teachers to a more comprehensive approach to sexual education for young people, be able to talk about HIV and AIDS prevention sensitively, effectively use English and clarify common misconceptions about HIV and AIDS and youth sexuality. The objectives for the students include providing clear information on HIV, AIDS, and STIs, transmission and prevention, effectively use English, and provide a safe and comfortable environment to communicate with peers and adults about sexuality and HIV and AIDS. Before and after the camp, the teens were given a test to see what they had comprehended about HIV and AIDS. The camp ended up being successful, showing that the students did learn stuff at the camp. The Thai government came up with a plan for 2007 until 2011. The plan's goals were to have people adopt behaviors and be able to safely protect themselves, help people living with HIV and AIDS have a good quality life, and get citizens to participate in HIV and AIDS prevention and alleviation. Thailand's HIV and AIDS prevention activities include conveying an education campaign, increasing STI treatment, discouraging men from visiting sex workers, advertise condom use, and implore sex workers to get monthly tests for STIs and carry records. Thailand also had other nations helping out with the problems. One of the nations was the U.S., which donated money and models to programs and services to help prevent HIV and AIDS. The program was called USAID, which stands for U.S. Agency for International Development. Thanks to the plans, programs, and services, the epidemic that started in the 1980s has reversed and not yet stopped.
This leather jacket is one of the very few leather products produced in Thailand I'm going to show you guys today. This jacket has a removable liner, perfect for any kind of wintry or cold conditions. You can wear it whenever, wherever you want, I don't care. And we got this great Columbia leather belt, also produced in Thailand. It's a very durable belt, and it does what belts do, it holds your pants up. And then if you call within the next 30 minutes, we're also going to throw in this great leather couch. Now this leather couch is not an ordinary leather couch. As you can see, it has a footrest on this side, as well as on that side. And its premier feature is the pull-down cup holder. So don't hesitate, pick up the phone and call 1-800-LEATHER today.
Oh, hey kids. Basketball is fun. But you know what isn't? Drugs. See, drugs can kill you. In basketball, what are you killing besides the competition? Also, don't do any alcohol. Alcohol kills too. A wise man once said, no time for drinking. Success is what I'm thinking. So remember, don't shoot heroin. Shoot balls.
From all of us here at Thai News Now, we wish you a great monsoon season.